with that 145 to 144 win over Omar and Jake, I did no kind of celebrating at all. But I think at this point,
Cheers, cuz.
here's to you.
Huge win.
Okay.
You
Got to
gotta
celebrate.
celebrate.
Got to celebrate even wins like that too. So,
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't love that, what else is
what
there?
else is there? Yeah, that's a good point. It was yesterday when I was even near a TV when Omar got a hold of me and said, "Good game." And I was like, well, I just assumed that he won because he only needed what 11 points to tie, 12 to win or something like that.
They
Yeah,
had two
yeah.
players going?
He did. He had Madison and I think Ty Chandler for Monday night, and I had nobody left. And
Right.
so
He
I
had that running back, yep, and a wide receiver on the Vikings. And the running back got a goose egg, I think.
um yeah, the running back only had one fantasy point,
Oh, it was
and
one. Okay.
yeah, Addison had nine, so he only had
Oh, he did have one.
10. So yeah, I had lucked out. I will say that I don't feel like I deserved to win that game. I feel like it was just this one was just total luck, and I had no business even uh with the win.
145. You deserve to win.
And what's sad about Omar and Jake is that they had the second highest score of the week with 144 and
Yeah.
don't have anything to show for it. So I think it was a huge showing by both teams, and we'll see how this shakes out for the playoffs for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that puts him at, I guess I guess it's me and Tanny in wild card one and two at the moment. And then we're kind of going from there.
Yeah, we can actually discuss that for a few minutes here. So you're both 7-5. It's almost like you're bound to be in a wild card slot along with Tanny, unless things kind of go haywire. I think you're 1.5 games behind Lisa, who's in the third East slot right now. So, and also you're 1.5 games above Omar and Jake. So with 2 games left in the season, in a regular season, it really seems like you and him are bound to be wild card one, wild card two. The only question is in which order. And and of course, assuming both of you are in the wild card slots, the higher one, the wild card one is going to face likely the West champ, who could be Andrew, likely,
Hmm.
and the lower one, the lower wild card is bound to face Chuck and CJ. Which one would you rather face in round one of the playoffs?
Tough question there. They're both looking good. Think I got to go with Chuck and CJ. Good divisional matchup there. And they've been known to get upset in the early rounds of the playoffs. So hopefully, if I end up facing them, history will repeat itself.
I just love the confidence that you're showing right now. I think there are maybe a few others in the league who wouldn't show that kind of confidence, saying that they wouldn't mind facing Chuck and CJ. So you heard it
Well,
here first.
true. I would say it's less about wanting to face them, and the other option is Andrew, who's really stacked too. So it's not like, they're both tough, but
So it's going to be a tough road either way. But you're
yes.
saying bring on Chuck and CJ. I like that.
Yeah, for that reason there. Yeah. But we'll see. They've been looking strong.
Okay. Now on the other side of the mountains, we have four teams tied, basically the West number 3 potential playoff spot. So that's Chris and Bonnie, Mark and Sarah, Rach and June, and me. And again, I'm just surprised to be even in this conversation.
Hey, you're looking good.
Now, there is a factor here that I believe puts Chris and Bonnie above the rest. I'm saying the obvious here, but TPF 1,481 total points for Chris and Bonnie, significantly above the rest of the pack here.
Yep. She's got, I guess Mark and Sarah are next up, and they're about 59 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,428 for them.
Three.
And regardless of whether, let's just say, Nabil loses out, and because the second West slot is also seems like it's almost up for grabs at this point, because Nabil has been maybe not as performing as well as we thought he would.
Yeah.
So with two West slots open, regardless of that, it still gives KBA an advantage over these other teams in the logjam.
Yep. They have a good shot at. They could even get up into that second place, like you're saying, and then they win a tiebreaker for the third place, most likely. Yep.
Well, consider that Nabil, his total points for is 1,401, which is below KBA and below Mark and Sarah. So it probably might not be a good idea for him to lose out and have to tie one of those two teams. Because if the trend continues, he's not going to prevail.
Yeah, definitely not a guarantee at this point for him.
I'm sad that your parents, Uncle Dwayne and Auntie Carmen, were eliminated from playoff contention, but kudos to them for staying in it this long. A lot of it's a factor or a function of how bad the West teams were, but the mere fact that they were able to stay in the race and in the hunt up until the end of week 12 says a lot. So
it does.
More power to DC Universe, DC Business, DC whatever they want to be. John and Noah have tied the record for the worst and longest losing streak in Rosita League history. 10 losses in a row.
The L10.
They tie Andrew, who did it in the time span of 2016 to 2017, and the co-ownership of Andrew and Van in 2018.
Oh, so yes. Andrew has 2 10s.
2 10s, yes.
Well, 1.5 10s.
And so that also shows how far Seattle Felix has come since then, too. Although it could happen again. So that was a close game here. It was Overachievers 141 over Seattle Felix 135. And Seattle Felix is on the brink of winning the West Division Championship, but just wasn't able to pull off the win this time.
Yeah, close matchup there. He 135, nothing wrong with that. He just happened to play against Mike, who's got a pretty scary team.
He sure does. I mean, when you have 39 points from CJ Stroud for Andrew, his team 135 that's no slouch for you. But Mike, week after week, just coming up strong.
Yeah, he's got too many. He's got Laporta, who you can't really start over Kittle. I know we were giving him a hard time about having two good tight ends the other week, but that would have been enough there. But you can't not start George Kittle. So, yeah. But Mike, 9 points out of the quarterback, still able to get 141. It's all about his wide receivers. I mean, Tyreek Hill, obviously, but that trade he made a while ago for Olave that we were talking about with him on the show, I mean, it's looking like a good trade for him.
Well, I think he has some issues coming up at running back this coming week against me of all people.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, so I know I believe I think Gus Edwards is on a bye or not available or something, and then one of his other running backs seems like is out for some reason. I forget what the exact. Let me actually pull it up because I want to be accurate when I
Jonathan
discuss
Taylor,
this.
doubtful. You
Oh, is that
never
who it is?
get a doubtful next to him. Yeah, because I think, oh, he will undergo thumb surgery on Wednesday.
All I can say is thumbs up to that.
Oh man, yeah, and that was the one he was waiting for all season to come back, I think, from the injury, and he finally got him going. And
Yeah,
like you said, he could be struggling at RB here.
yeah. Well, I mean, Andrew almost has this West Division championship locked up, but um, I'm not sure he has much to play for the rest of the season. So you might as well just kind of take it easy. I think. Uh,
Yeah, I wouldn't do anything drastic, Andrew. Just kind of like don't make too many moves on the waiver wire. It'll all work out because
yeah.
he
I
would
mean,
have to lose twice, and Nabil would have to
exactly
really
right.
win twice and make up the total points for difference.
Which is probably not. I mean, just the. I mean, the stars would have to align for that to happen.
Mathematically, very unlikely.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, speaking of nabs, that here's what we call nail biter. 108 to 105, Tanny over Nabil.
Oh my goodness. Man, I wasn't even paying attention. Did this happen last night?
Oh, that's a good question. I believe so because Nabs texted me and he was rooting for me, which is nice of him. I'm not sure I
Yeah.
returned that compliment, or I'm not sure I returned that. I was like, I believe what I said to Nabil was, I just need you or Tenny to lose, because if you tie, that's not good for where I'm at. But if one of you loses, that means that puts me within uh, that much closer to whichever team loses.
Yep.
So, and lo and behold, Nabil lost. So I'm only one
Yeah.
game behind Nabil for the second West
Oh
slot.
no. One thing I noticed, he benched Josh Jacobs. We were talking about Josh Jacobs
Yeah,
falling short for him last week. Chuck came on and said something like, look for Josh Jacobs to get going. Something about coach changes, getting a few more guys in the backfield, but Chuck was right on that one, 110 yards and a touchdown.
Nabil did not take that advice from the Raiders insider.
Man, hmm, interesting.
27 points on the bench.
Ooh, hate to see it.
I think it's hilarious, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah. No, I was being sarcastic.
oh no, no, and over on the Seda Steely side, I mean, what really helped him was a loss by left side,
Mm,
138 to 100, with Rach and June coming out the victor over you.
yep.
Kind of a aberration for you this week, though. I mean, it's not very often that you have five players scoring single digits.
Yeah. I mean, I was in a bit of a spot between tight ends there. I think I finally have my tight end situation figured out, but for this week I didn't have it sorted out yet. And then yeah, you just hate to see it when you're watching. If you're gonna watch the Seahawks lose, I mean, at least make them passing touchdowns, Brock Purdy. Three rushing touchdowns before he got a passing one is just it was hard to watch.
And on the grind side of things, it's 40 points from Hertz. They're looking strong heading into the final stretch run.
Yeah, they're looking really good. Bench looking really deep too. I mean, they had some underperformers on their roster, mostly in Eckler and Metcalf, and still put up 138 with a few
Yes.
adjustments. adjustments with their bench over the next couple weeks, I mean, if they can make it into the playoffs, I think they've got a really good shot.
The Arsenio Bowl trophy is there until somebody takes it away, and it's they could be getting hot at the right time here.
I think they want to keep the trophy.
So speaking of getting hot at the right time, Wu-Tang 145, Omar and Jake 144, in what is arguably the match of the week.
Absolutely. I mean, 1 point difference at that high of a score, too. Crazy. Your team's looking good, cuz.
I think so too. I think let me just kind of take a step back here and try to be as unbiased as possible. There are still some issues, obviously, with my team that I need to iron out. But if you take the team as it is now, with Trevor Lawrence finally showing himself to be the Trevor Lawrence we knew he always was, and some of the running backs that are finally showing themselves to have some sort of potential stud value here. If I
Yeah,
was on the other side, I wouldn't want to face the Wu-Tang team at all. So it's
absolutely not.
yeah, I mean it's but it's kind of a um two sides of the coin here because on the side of the Wu-Tang, being the one who owns all these cool players, it's still I can't say I'm 100% comfortable with everyone, but going forward, we'll see. Will the real Wu Tang team show up? Let's see if that happens.
We'll see. The trend would say yes.
And last week, you and I were talking about which way are Omar and Jake going? Are they going up, down, or sideways? It's hard to tell. If you just
Yeah,
take the score by itself of 144, it seems like they're trending upward. But
yeah,
with the loss, this puts them behind the eight ball, not just in the East, but in the wild card race. They're a game and a half behind you and Tanny, and they no longer have control of their own destiny at this point. Whereas if they had gotten the win and just won out, they would be in the
yeah.
playoffs.
hmm
So this was dare I say, a devastating loss for Omar and Jake
Yeah.
because it just gives them that much more of a level of difficulty to get into the playoffs.
Yep. Well, they've got a, big matchup. Uh, let's see. They're going to play Tanny next week. So that'll be one to look out for there.
Oh,
Big
that's
implications for the wild card, too.
one last thing I will say about the Wu Tang team. But out of all these huge scores that I had, the player of the week for me would be Dalton Schultz with one fantasy point.
One fantasy point.
Because if not for that one fantasy point, I would not have won. So I
Would
think
have been a tie.
Dalton Schultz, one fantasy point.
MVP.
Yes. And not just that, Jonnu Smith for Omar and Jake, zero fantasy points.
Yeah.
So I'll probably even say Jonnu Smith was one of my players of the week as well. Just happened to play for the other team.
Yep. Both tight ends were actually your players of the week, and they combined for 1 point.
Yeah. Well, so even though I have the mindset, the humble Wu Tang mindset of I shouldn't have won. Actually, this was all my plan. Okay.
Yeah. You've been talking about this all season.
Yes. Finally comes
Love
to
it when a
fruition.
plan comes together.
Well, speaking of plans coming together, Lisa, 7 wins in a row, 130-77 over Team Mara. And I tell you what, for a person who doesn't check her lineup too much before the game begins and probably doesn't know where she is in the standings at this point, what a run.
She's on a tear. Already clinched the playoff berth.
And probably will likely stay in the top 3 in the East. 45 fantasy points for Dak Prescott.
Yeah.
Will he have the same kind of performance this Thursday against the Seahawks? Actually, I don't think so.
Hopefully not. No. We can usually shut down the pass better than that. So we'll see.
And then on the other side of the coin here, Team Mara, 77 fantasy points. Not exactly the kind of performance you want in week 12.
No, kind of a maybe an overcorrection to the mean for them.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, I mean a lot of their star players that their running backs combined for 12. Their and Puka Nakua, who's like their star, is only 6 points. So yeah, off week for them. I think it's they still have a high ceiling.
Well, Mark
This
and
week just
Sarah,
kind of shows their low floor. Yeah.
this is the coming week for a rebound because they face of all teams John and Noah.
Mm.
So, I mean,
Cooper
well,
Cup versus Puka Nakua.
there you go. Or Goliath versus David, depending on how you look at that. But yeah, all right.
Yeah. Middle child outscored them this week, so we'll see if they can do it again next week.
It would be an upset of all upsets if John and Noah are able to win in any of these remaining games against
Yeah.
Mark and Sarah this weekend and Rach and June the following weekend.
Gee, I wonder who you're rooting for in those matchups.
I'll tell you what, I want to see a story. I want to see a good storyline to end
Hmm.
the fantasy season for John and Noah because 10 losses in a row. That is one of the most pathetic. No, wait a minute. I better not go that route. All right. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, I mean, averages wise, they're due for a couple, just like
well,
mathematically.
yeah. Well, speaking of John and Noah, they didn't really show too much of a muscle against Seattle KBA. So 123 to 96.
Hmm.
Uh, KBA showing their strength here. They had some good showings from Mostert, Samuel, and more.
Yeah.
That's a pretty key middle of the lineup performance there.
And those are some consistent players for them. And Travis Kelsey starting to come in clutch for her too. Almost 100 yards, but six receptions for 91. Love that out of a tight end.
Yep. They're not in as bad of a spot as a 5-7 team would seem to be, just because of the
Hmm.
mere fact they have the TPF capital on their side.
Yeah. They went on a little bit of a losing kick there for a while. I might have started it off. I don't remember the details, but glad to see him back with a huge win for them. Keeps them in that 5-7 matchup, well on top. I mean, that win for them is the difference between what, third and sixth or something. I don't know, in the West.
That's exactly right. I mean, if they had lost, and especially to a team like an okay team like Middle Child,
Right.
they would have been 4-8 and well behind the eight ball because they would have to win out just to get to 6-8, and and everybody else above them would basically have to mostly lose out just for them to tie with the 6-8 person. Not a good position they want to be in, but it was a huge win for KBA for sure.
Yeah. Whether or not it was a must win, they got it done either way. So,
Well, it wasn't quite a must win for DC Universe or AKA DC Business. A 143 to 90 win by Chuck and CJ, and they had this to say in a message to Uncle Dwayne and Auntie Carmen.
Hey, Dwayne and Carmen, how you doing? This is Town Business, the only business in the business for the Rosita League. So, I know you used the DC business name without permission. I love you, Dwayne and Carmen, but I'm gonna have to tell you that that's Article 12, Section 4 of the Town Business By Rules. You have to get permission first. So we're gonna have to ask you to stop using the DC business name.
So you heard it here first from Chuck and CJ, and I'm sure everybody else will follow suit here. But
yeah, legally binding in the league.
Chuck and CJ, of course, are in a tremendous spot here. They have Mike in their rear view mirror, but they're on the verge of clinching an East title for the second year in a row.
Looks like they'll be able to hold on to that belt. Chuck actually sent me a picture of him holding the belt, so it looks like he picked it up, and I don't see it down there. Yep.
Oh, yep, that's a good point. Yeah, they were over here the other day, and I was like, well, we got to do a little bit of a WWE style promo for this week. So,
That's awesome. I bet CJ loved it.
oh, I mean, CJ is the only owner of the league that can fit in one of his belts.
My biggest takeaway is that you might actually make the playoffs. You've been saying it forever. And, I always wanted to believe it, but this week I'm starting to believe it. And on top of that, you are someone I would not want to face in the playoffs because your team is your scores are going like this. And a lot of the scarier teams, the higher ranked teams, their scores are kind of going like this. So I feel bad for whoever has to play against you if it comes to that, cuz. And I just want to say good, nice work. A lot of people would have given up there.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, persistence, right? Perseverance. Mm-hmm. And I think you're right. I think that if I would not want to face the Wu-Tang team if I was one of the other teams right now at all.
No.
I want to talk a little bit about Nabil's team here because in the likelihood he gets into the playoffs, that is a team right there. If I were to pick all the teams that I would not want to face, it would be Nabil's team for various reasons. I mean, you have Brian Robinson. His running backs are superb. You have Robinson, Ford, and Pacheco. That is an unfadable 1-2-3 punch at running back right there.
Yep.
And if Josh Jacobs comes into the mix, potentially 1-2-3-4, probably the best running back depth out of everyone in the league. I mean, just that in and of itself, I'm not sure I want to face that. But his chances of getting to the playoffs is now in jeopardy because he's only one game above those 4, 5, and 7 teams of KBA, Mark and Sarah, Rach and June, and me. I'm facing Seattle Felix here. That's going to be key for me to get this win, just to keep up with the other 5 and 7 teams because of the fact I have the lowest TPF out of all of them too. So I need to win out. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've known that. But what's exciting is you're doing it. You're on the right track.
That would be a feat. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it, but that would be a feat if I go from a 2 and 7 team to a playoff team.
That would be insane.
And what would that say about all the other teams that I leapfrog to get there? But we'll cross that bridge when we get to
it. We'll cross that bridge.
All right, here's another big one. Seattle KVA versus DC Universe in an Ennis Bloodline matchup.
Man, that's going to be a big game, and I would not count DC Universe out.
Same here. I've seen their lineup. They any given week they can hit it big, and as we've seen, any given week KBA might have the a huge TPF, but still lose 5 out of 12 of the first 5 of the first 12 matches. So you just never know in this league.
Yep. You just need a one-off week from KBA, and that would be just insane in the West if that happens. Huge week for them. If they are able to take care of DC Universe, they're going to be looking pretty good.
Nabs versus the Grind. This is a must-win for Nabs.
Yeah.
And a must-win for the Grind, but
yeah, must win for both. So someone's not going to be happy.
Would you say playoffs are kind of already here?
I think so. Yeah. it feels like it, especially in the West. It's just everywhere. Unless you're, Andrew or Lisa, unless you've clinched,
Totally.
playoff vibes. Yep, Nabs versus the Grind, another huge game, and another. I think you're gonna text Nabil, tell him to start Josh Jacobs.
We'll bookmark that thought. That's going to be an
All
interesting
right,
one. All
because you're
right.
still rooting for Nabs on that one, right?
To be quite honest, I'm rooting for both of them not to tie,
Okay.
if that makes sense. Because I wouldn't mind if Nabs loses, because then that really opens things up for all the rest of those West teams. But
Hmm.
if Rach and June lose, that's also good in another way, because that takes them out of the loop somewhat. If they tie, that
Hmm.
that would not be good for Mark and Sarah, myself, and KBA.
Yeah, you would. So just not a tie.
Yeah, I mean, what's the likelihood they're going to tie? But you just never know. I
I
mean,
don't know. I feel like if we say it one more time, it's gonna happen.
we put it out into the fantasy universe here.
Yep.
All right, now let's take a ride across I-90 over the Cascade Mountains over to the east side, and here we have Town Business versus Overachievers. This is about as big as it gets, I think, in
Hmm.
terms of potential East Division championship ramifications. Obviously, if Chuck and CJ can get this win, that will clinch their repeat of the East Division championship. If
Yep.
Mike gets this win, they are both going to be tied at 10-3, and anything can happen in the final week. I mean, there were a lot of good ideas that came out of the league, and we did our best to listen, and we followed through by increasing the prize for the division championships. And of course, my surprise was getting the belts earlier this season.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it really does put a new wrinkle into this mix, because in other seasons, if we just had this, it really wouldn't matter.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a big week.
Well, big week coming up for Super Scrubs versus Seda Steelies. A must win for Super Scrubs for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Must win for them. And must win for Channing.
Yeah, I mean it is. I think you're right. I think it is a must win for both. So that should be a fun rivalry matchup too, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with the Super Scrubs trending in the right direction, I think they've got a good shot.
Speaking of rivalry, Lisa versus you.
Oh man, with all this sweating going on for, tough matchups, trying to get in the playoffs and whatever. I'm just glad to have my Lisa bye week coming up. It's just a huge weight off my chest.
There
It
you
couldn't
go.
come at a better time.
What does this match mean to you, whether it's rankings related or otherwise?
Well, to me, I mean, obviously, unless I face you the final week, so I need to win one of these games. And it's not like I'm feeling good about that one. So just getting that one win to make me feel better about the wild card spot. That's what it means to me. But also, win against Lisa, I could be looking at getting in the top three, which I mean doesn't really matter, but I think it matters. I would like to be in the top three, get a little lighter matchup in the
That's
first round.
You just hit the nail on the head right there.
Yeah.
The fact that you would probably get a little bit of a less resistance to the Arsenio Bowl.
Yep. And if I could win this week, that's huge because I take care of needing Lisa to lose as well. A little 2-for-1 special there.
And then the interdivisional matchup, Mark and Sarah versus John and Noah. I'm not sure there's really much to say about this one other than Team Mara, they need this win.
They do. And they were outscored last week by Middle Child by almost 20 points, I think, right around 20 points.
That's another good point. So, will the real Team Mara step up, or will it be another down week?
Yeah. Um, I know what you want to have happen.
Yep. John and Noah, this is your time here.